You're being put into carbon freeze.
What if he doesn't survive? He's worth a lot to me.
The Empire will compensate you if he dies. Put him in!
No, stop! What are you doing? Stop! Get us all killed! Yes, stop, please! I'm not ready to die!
Hey! Listen to me! Chewie! Chewie, this won't help me! Hey! Save your strength. There'll be another time. The princess. You have to take care of her. You hear me? Huh?
I love you.
I know.
What's going on? Turn round! Chewbacca, I can't see! Oh, they've encased him in carbonite. He should be...
Hi. So that video you just watched was from Star Wars Episode 5, Empire Strikes Back, one of my favorite movies of all time. So we just watched Han Solo, one of the heroes, be frozen in carbonite. So what I thought we could do from this is to talk about essentially how would we go about unfreezing him. Now, in the movies they end up using heat. What's another method you could use to melt the carbonite without adding any heat? Well, one of the methods I thought we could use would be the addition of salt. As you can see, we have our little mock-up here. As you can see, Han Solo here is now frozen in carbonite, so it's going to be up to us to try and free him without adding any heat. So let's get into it. So here now we have, for the experiment, what we're going to do is we have Han Solo here in his carbonite, and we have an Imperial officer here in carbonite as well. And then just behind we have our little mock setup of the scene. So what we're going to do here is we have the Imperial officer one on the left here as a control, and then we're going to add salt to the Han Solo carbonite and see what happens. So right now I'm looking through glass because I just have it on my deck right now, just because I wanted to have it in an area where it is frozen. So right now it's about -1 out, so it shouldn't melt at all. So now we will add the salt. So we'll open the door. And we'll take the salt and put it all over the smuggler Han Solo. And now we will just time lapse it. So we'll just take a look as best we can here. You can actually see how much it just broke apart. Didn't have a lot of pressure to it, and now Han Solo is once again free. And then, sorry, just quickly, as you can see here, that the control is still completely frozen due to the outside temperature. Hi. So what you just witnessed in that little demonstration was essentially showing the fact that salt will melt the ice even in a temperature that is below freezing, because currently it's -1 degrees out. So what's happening there is you're seeing what the salt does is it melts the ice, but the salt doesn't really melt the ice. That's not the best way to put it. What it actually does is it creates a phenomenon called freezing point depression. So what this phenomenon essentially does is the salt makes it so that the ice, around Han Solo there, it makes it so that its freezing temperature is actually lower than 0 degrees Celsius, which is what we know freezing point to be at basic nominal air temperature, not air temperature, air pressure. Now you're asking yourself, of course, now how does it do this? So what happens is it makes it so we know that ice, when it goes from liquid to a solid, it creates a more rigid structure, a very solid, rigid structure. So what the salt does is it doesn't allow those water molecules to bond to create that rigid structure is what's happening. So when we know salt is a solute, so what happens when it's in the salt is NaCl, sodium chloride, so that when the two break their ionic bonds is when it dissolves into the water essentially. So it's just not allowing the structure to create the structure is essentially what happens. What's interesting is there's even better salt to use. Would be calcium chloride, which is another thing you could use, which just drops the freezing point even lower and is more effective. Not unfortunately, but calcium chloride is really bad for the environment, so it's not something I would recommend using for this kind of experiment. The table salt, it works more than fine for it. So yeah. So if you go ahead and try this at home, try it with anything, you could upscale it. You could use a really big block of ice and use lots of salt or something, or little ones and use little salt. You can do whatever you want. You could use like different colors or something. You could color the ice and then work with that. I've seen that done before. That looks really cool. So definitely lots of stuff you can do with it. Yeah. So thanks for watching my video.